Hey guys, Kevin Shaw here, editor-in-chief of the Watercraft Journal. Here in my home garage, just wrenching on the old hot rod. This is what I do to relax, which basically makes me a psychopath. But want to take a quick moment and address something that came up this week that I think bears a conversation. I'm a little concerned about a message that was put out in a recent video, pretty popular video channel. I normally wouldn't comment on stuff like this. It's really not my place. But the reason being that I'm even stepping into the ring on this one is we're getting a lot of questions on the magazine and on the video channel. People are coming to me going, hey, I heard I don't need to break in the 2022 Sea-Doos, or hey, I want to get one of those 80-mile-an-hour 2022 Sea-Doos, and stuff like that. And at first I was like, what's going on? Where are these people getting this crazy stuff? And then I saw the video. And the video's getting around that a 2022 all-black RXT-X 300 was modified, was tuned, and that's great. I mean, by all means, horsepower is so easy these days. And the speed numbers that are coming out of these skis are bonkers. It's great. We should all be stoked to live in such a time. But the problem is that the Sea-Doo in question in the video is said to have only had a little over 1 hour of break-in time. And that's a big deal. That's a dangerous deal. This is something I always err on the side of caution. I always err on, hey, we want to help you keep your watercraft on the water as long as possible. You spent a lot of money on this thing. Let's keep it running, right? Let me help you out as much as I can. So when this video came out and they're saying that, oh, it only had like an hour and a half of break-in time, I freaked out. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? What are they doing? The 300 Ace engines require 5 hours of break-in time. They require 5 hours of break-in time. It's mandatory. There's a reason why Rotax and BRP say it's a 10-hour break-in time. Guys like Jerry Gaddis and me are like, oh, okay, after 5 hours you can kind of start messing with it. Well, they did it with an hour. And I guess I have to explain it in a lot more detail what's going on in these engines and why this is such a bad idea. And I'm begging people not to replicate this. Typically, iron engines like what's sitting, all right, that's a 535 cubic inch, almost 9-liter big block Dodge right there behind me. And besides the cylinder heads and the intake manifold, that whole thing is made out of frickin' iron, all right? It weighs 1,000,000 pounds. It'll kill you, all right? Kawasaki, Yamaha, and Sea-Doo engines are not made out of iron. They're made out of aluminum. They're lightweight. But here's the problem. These pistons, the pistons going up and down 8,000 times, 7,000 times a minute in your watercraft, they have rings on them. See all these grooves on the side? Okay, we're talking elementary here. All these grooves are fitted with rings, all right? These rings are designed to do a couple things. They're designed first to keep the explosion of gas and air from going past the sides of the piston all the way down to your crankshaft and contaminating the oil. Number two is oil's being shot up on the underside of the piston, and they don't want that oil going past the pistons and getting into the valves and mixing in the combustion. And with an iron engine block, piston with the rings, they're seated to the cylinder. All right, they've expanded and shrunk enough that they are perfectly fit to keep that piston from wobbling around. Let me get my piston back, all right? Here's our piston. They don't want that piston wallowing around inside of that cylinder, okay? You don't want it rattling in there. So the rings help seat it. Well, aluminum engines can't take that kind of heat. Aluminum just can't do it. So what they do is that they press in what's called ductile iron or ductile sleeves. Lots of times they heat up the aluminum block and they freeze that sleeve and they use a hydraulic press and press that sleeve in. So when the block cools off and the cylinder warms up, they fuse together. So they're not going to go anywhere, okay? Because iron can take all the heat and all the banging around that aluminum can't, okay? That's how it works. Now, in 2018, Rotax, in order to save weight, in order to save money, in order to do something that is beyond my comprehension, decided, let's get rid of the sleeves and let's use electroplating. Well, what's electroplating? Well, we could spend an hour talking about electroplating. So it's a rough hewed or a rough surface, okay, that's adhered onto the inside of the cylinders. In order for the piston to seal up so it doesn't rattle around inside the cylinder, it needs to be heat cycled. It needs to be ran, and it needs to cool off, it needs to heat up. What process, what good does that do in heat cycling an engine? Well, that process helps configure, all right, where the piston's gonna sit, how the rings seat, how it all fits together so you don't have any lost compression, because without compression you have no power. And ultimately, to make sure that it's going to run at its optimal level. So, what does this have to do with an Ace 300 engine? What does this have to do with a Sea-Doo? Well, in those 5 hours or in those 10 hours of break-in time, where you're alternating the throttle and you're following everything the owner's manual tells you to do, well, here's what you're doing, is all that rough edging from the electroplating is getting shaved off the cylinders. It's being shaved so that those rings are smoothing the cylinder. A completely raw, brand new engine needs that level of heat cycling. In order to survive, I'm sure you guys want to put hundreds of hours on your brand new $20,000 Sea-Doo. Why on earth would you rob it of its proper break-in process? I got no idea. So why is this dangerous? Why is this video bad news? Because what's happening is I guarantee that engine's not going to last. It's going to have problems. Will it blow up? Hopefully not. I pray it doesn't. I don't want that guy, whoever that customer is, to have that engine blown up and he's got to go buy a new one. Because guess what? It ain't going to be warranted. Guaranteed. So, golly, what do we do? Well, first, do your proper break-in. You want to modify that engine? You wait till it's broken in. Why? Because in robbing that engine of its proper break-in, those pistons are not seated. Those valves are not seated. The plating in those cylinders has not been heat cycled, okay? So what's gonna happen? That engine is going to have blow-by, which is pressure blowing by, here's our piston again, air, combustion, carbon, and unspent gasoline is going to blow past the sides of this piston and contaminate the oil and fills up the crankcase with positive atmosphere or pressure, and that pressure needs to get out. So that's why people sell oil catch cans, okay? To pull that pressure out, to pull that excess atmosphere out. Sea-Doos already have crazy blow-by problems. And those are properly broken in engines. Can you imagine what's gonna happen now to that engine without a proper break-in? My phone is full of text messages. In fact, 2 of them came in while I'm filming this, of major people in the industry, representatives of Sea-Doo and major performance tuners, builders, and part suppliers. Because I reached out to everybody on going, what the hell's going on? And they all are freaking out. And there's gonna be people who are gonna get in the comment section and say, Kevin's full of crap and Kevin doesn't know what he's talking about. But I don't really care what you have to say. I have the engineers behind me. I have the smartest builders behind me. I'm speaking on their behalf because they don't want the heat. I'll take the heat. This really isn't how I wanted to end the video, but It is what it is. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Watercraft Journal. We appreciate it. We're trying to help you out. We're trying to keep you safe. We're trying to keep your ski on the water longer. That's what we're trying to do.